Good evening, good morning, everyone. At some places, it might be morning this time. So welcome again. Welcome back to my cohort. Today, we will be talking about the product modeling. Very basics we'll cover so that you understand that what basically product modeling is all about and how can you go about it and how can you learn it further, right? So that is what we'll be covering today. And why this topic I brought up is that if you remember in the last class of the Omni Studio cohort, right? So where people were asking me about the CPQ, if I can take a session on the CPQ. So yes, we will do CPQ, but before we go to CPQ, we should have the product modeling concepts clarified. And that is why today we bring to you product modeling cohort. Okay, so before we start, I would like to wish you all a very happy Lohri. So today is the first harvest festival of India, and that's where let's smile, let's have fun, and let's go through the session today. Okay, feel free to ping your questions in the Q&A chat window, and I'll take up the questions towards the end of the session. Okay, and we'll definitely be covering I'll try to cover as much as possible today in terms of the basics of product modeling, how, why, how, and what we should be doing. Okay, so let's get started. So as always, we will start with a keynote, and then we'll move on to the product modeling, why we should be doing it, what we should be doing it, how we can do it, and how do we do that or make that EPC product modeling effective and coming into the industry's CPQ and EPC module. Okay, so that's what we'll be covering today, and let's see then what's next after that. Okay. Right. So before we go on, a brief introductions. So I am Manika Goyal. I am the founder of ForceArk Academy, have 18 plus years of industry experience. We have an organization called ForceArk Academy where we have trained almost 3,000 plus learners and have conducted mostly the online training sessions. It's completely LMS enabled. And we have the other organization called as IntelliCloud Solutions, where we focus on the delivery and implementations and consulting for the Salesforce and Omni Studio. So we are a specialist onto that. And yes, we are the Salesforce partners, right? So starting with the keynote today, right? So we are all part of, I believe you all are part of the Omni Studio community that we have. And so that you can kind of keep getting the updates about our organization, about any activity that we are doing and would like you to be part of that, right? So feel free to contact us through the WhatsApp groups and let us learn and grow together. So my only motive of doing these cohorts is basically connecting with you, learning from you, and growing along with you. Okay, so that's where we are, and I would highly appreciate if you can ping us and let us know if there is any topic that you want us to cover, or if you are a specialist into that, we are happy to have that session along with you. Okay, so we'll definitely arrange that for the developer community out here. Okay, so let's get started with the topic of the day. Okay, so first thing that I would like to ask is that why product modeling is important. You can kind of ping it in the Q&A chat. Why do you think really the product modeling is important? I'll start explaining that as well. So basically, see, when we talk about product modeling, right? When we start talking about the product modeling, right? So product modeling is something which is there, which touches our lives again on day-to-day basis, because that's where everything, like right from the e-commerce, right from the milk delivery at your doorstep to buying any product at a shop or buying any product online comes into picture, right? So this product modeling has to be carefully sorted, and it has to be always updated with the latest products available for that particular organization, along with the latest price list and all available. So whenever we are doing a product modeling, we have to craft it very, very consciously, right? Why very consciously? Because see, you cannot do the product modeling every day. So you have to set up the base of the organization as to what the organization is going to sell, what is the business case that we are covering, what domain are we actually touching upon, and how does that product actually touches upon on actual ground to the customer. How does your product actually reaches to your customer? These are all the factors that actually drive the product modeling. Okay, so first of all, it is very important that you understand the domain in which industry are you actually doing the product modeling. So whether it's a consumer goods, whether it's a manufacturing product, whether it's a telco product, or whether it is I would say any other product you can think of, it's an e-commerce product, and what platform are you trying to sell it through, right? So those are like things that you need to understand from the domain perspective, and then the business case around that. So when I say business case, what does it mean? The channels that you're going to sell it through, right? The offers that you plan to, and the frequency of the offers, the process through which you're going to sell it. Okay, so whether it's a door-to-door delivery product, whether it's an online selling portal, or whether it's a product which has like multiple offers coming up, whether you're doing a lot of promotions on it, and how are you running the marketing campaigns around it. So you need to actually have a holistic picture of a product, right from its place of origin, as in the manufacturing plant, to the consumer doorstep. So you need to understand, connect those dots before you actually finalize your product modeling. So you have to have a strong understanding of all of these things, right? And after, let's take an example, right? So if we are talking about, say, a consumer goods product, right? So consumer goods product could be, say, for example, your courier services. Or it can be, a very common example that I always take is like the milk delivery to your doorsteps, right? So these products, they have, some of these products will also have a shelf life, and some of these products will have a time to reach to the customer, right? So when I talk about, say, courier delivery services, in that case, what kind of products will it be? The products would be like, I will be charging, say, $90 per kg, depending on the distance of the travel of that particular product, right? So the courier, if it is starting from Pune and it has to reach Delhi, then there is a certain amount that has to be charged based on the freight that you have to pay for the transportation, right? So based on that, and based on the size, it can be volumetric based, it can be kgs based, or it can be any other parameter around that. So you have to carefully think through that, what kind of package it is. Then does it contain a perishable item, or it is a non-perishable item, right? Is it really allowed to carry through the transport? So things like explosives cannot be couriered across, right? Some of the electronic devices are also prohibited to be couriered across. So those kind of validations you need to think through. That is the reason that you should understand the domain, the business case around it, and how that product has to be sourced and be reaching its target, right? So that is the chain that you need to understand. Let's take the other example of the milk delivery, right? So again, that's a perishable product, has to be delivered to the customer before the expiry date, and maybe like Big Basket or the Super Daily, right? So they kind of have a portal, or say they have an app through which the customers would order, and the subscriptions, it's a subscription based model, right? And they allow the customer to change the subscription or change the quantity of the items, add an item, update an item, right up till 10 p.m. At least, right? Just the day before of the delivery. So if I have to get the milk in the morning at 6 a.m., I can edit it up to like 10 p.m. in the night, right? So those kind of things kind of dynamically derives that what kind of order the customer is going to place, right? So that is the reason we have to craft the product model very carefully, understanding that how it will be delivered to the customer, what kind of order will will actually be processed around this particular product, right? And when I say mapping the requirements to downstream, this precisely is the reason that when that product is going to reach to the customer, whether it's a courier, whether it's a milk, or say in case of say telco, it's the activation. So there might be cases where I'm looking for a service that needs to be activated before a certain date. But for certain product, it may not be feasible. There may be a fixed turnaround time. So those are the constraints that we need to think through while we are doing the product modeling. So that is the reason a product modeler is almost a half BA. He's almost a business analyst to understand, to be able to connect right from the beginning to the end. Okay. So why I'm spending so much time on this particular piece of thing is that to imbibe in you that if you are wanting to learn the product modeling, you have to understand the basics of it, why that product has to be modeled, how that product has to be delivered, how the order system would be working, and then you arrive on to what part of it, that how basically you do it in the system, right? So once you understand the domain, the business case, and how it is going to reach to the downstream, then you can start defining your product model. So you have to spend a quite good time in understanding the basics, the background of it, and then derive at the product model by discussing definitely with the relevant stakeholders, who are the product managers, who are the sellers, and people who are involved in actually processing that entire product, right? And then the last thing that you do is configuration, which kind of becomes very easy if we have all the 4 steps sorted. Okay, so that is the basic concept of product modeling. Remember, you need to get the domain, you need to understand the business case, you need to know that how the order will be processed, and then you define the model, get a buy-in from all the stakeholders, and then you configure it in the system, which in our case is Vlocity, or say Omni Studio, or say Industries Enterprise Product Catalog, right? Okay, I'll move on to the next topic, that what basically product modeling is. It is actually creating a model for a product that you're going to sell. Okay, so there are like 4 aspects of it, right? So you have a product which has to be sold, which has to be basically ordered, it should be billable, and in case of telco, it has also to be provisioned. Okay. So you need to understand the requirements, the architecture, and then consolidate all these things and try to create a model which suffices your product specifications, your services, and your resources, and understand that how the product needs to be sold, ordered, provisioned, and built. Okay, so these are the things that you need to think through. And how can you represent it? It can be represented using a simple UML by drawing the UML chart and building a hierarchy of the product, right? You also at times need to understand that how would you cross-sell or upsell the product, right? So those are some concepts which are like very common in our in e-commerce market as well, and in any market, I would say. And I mean, it's not just restricted to one domain, but across everything, right? So for example, if I'm buying a SIM card, right? So there is, or if I'm buying a iPhone or any phone or a Samsung phone, right? So there is a package that comes together with it to buy a SIM card and an internet plan, right? So this is called as cross bundling, because the data voice is a separate offer and my phone is a separate product, right? So these products have to be clubbed together and sold. So this is called basically bundling and cross-selling of the things. Another level of cross-selling would be like you get with your fiber services, usually nowadays you get the OTT deals packaged in. So you get the Netflix subscription, you get the Prime subscription along with it. So that is a very classic example of cross-bundling. Upselling would be basically you're already an existing customer, you already have a plan, right? And then while you try to make a payment or you try to recharge your product or recharge your services, right? At that time, you get a pop-up, oh, I've been seeing you, and it's based on AI, right? So it's called as next best product or next best offer. So what your system would say, oh, I've been seeing you that you've been a regular customer and you've been a user of 150 Mbps of our services. So why don't you go for a 200 Mbps services? Because I saw you exhausted some of the values in the past, right? So that kind of thing is kind of upselling, right? So cross-selling, upselling, all these are kind of consolidated part of understanding that how product modeling would actually be configured in the system. So you need to be flexible with your product structure in terms of the offers that you create, in terms of the I would say the product specifications that you create. Okay. And your product model actually is the core. It is the heart of your CPQ system. I mean, I would say it is the heart of your overall organization, because that's where is the source of actually selling your products, and that's where all your profits come through, right? So I'll move on to the next topic. Let's look at that. How does the product modeling works at ground zero? So I'm taking an example of a telco product here. In this case, we would look at an example where we are trying to do a 100 GB plan, right, for a customer, sorry, a 100 Mbps plan for a customer, and see that what are the different parts of it, and what level of modeling do you really need to do to be able to pick up the product right from the provider and deliver it to the customer. Okay, so we have to connect all these things, this entire chain, into a one product model. So let's try to understand that from ground zero, how does it really work? Okay, so let's look at this 100 GB postpaid plan. Right, so it's simple. You have a requirement for buying a postpaid plan for your phone. Okay, and with that phone, basically you want a 100 GB postpaid plan. Okay, so let's look at what are the things. So basically this 100 GB postpaid plan is actually your commercial offer. It is a product offering that is there. Okay, and different parts of it is basically the SIM card, the phone number that you get along with it, a calling plan, and a data plan. Understood? So this is the very commercial layer, and this is where actually you see the offers on any website. So if you go to Airtel, if you go to Jio, if you go to Vodafone websites, right? So that's where you will see you see the different plans, right? On the top menu, you would see postpaid, prepaid, fiber, or you may also see some other services if they are like WAN providers and things like that, right? So similarly, that is what I'm trying to depict here. So if I have to buy a postpaid plan of 100 GB, what are the different components that are going to go? So on the click of it or on the face of it, what you see is the commercial offer, and that is what this basic layer is all about. Okay. So on this left, and that you would see is basically a standard way of mapping the industry standard for mapping the product model, right? And this is where your definitions actually have to be mapped to your actual products. So you have to abide by this, because this is on the left. So this one basically defines the overall industry best practices that are followed and have to be followed. So this is maintained by the forum, the telecom forum, and you have to I mean, all the telco organizations kind of follow this product structure, right? So yes, so coming back to this, basically at the commercial view of it, or at the commercial layer where you are trying to sell the product, it is called product offering, and you may have like these kind of offers available. Next would come, what would come is the functional view of that particular product. So how actually that product needs to be configured below the offer, right? So we will be connecting it like that this product offering is kind of made available as actual product. So what is the actual product below this? It is the SIM for a SIM card here, the phone number. For a calling plan, you can call it as a voice plan, and 100 GB is nothing but the data. So this is your actual product specification that is there, right? Now, when it actually comes to delivering this particular product to the customer, you have to understand that how you are going to reach out to the customer, what is actually going to reach out to the customer to enable this particular product or enable this particular service, right? So in case of SIM card, it needs to be dispatched, right? So we'll have a dispatch as a service. Activation is required for the phone number to be active. There has to be a voice service to enable the voice plan and a data service to enable the data plan, right? So this is the functional layer, and you actually realize this product in the system as an actual product spec, and you build the offers on top of it. So now tomorrow, if I have another offer of say 80 GB, or if I have another offer of 150 GB postpaid plan, or so I can reuse these product specifications and I can build a new offer on top of it. Okay, wherein say some of the parameters may change. So maybe this data plan may change to 150 GB, rest remain the same. So I can essentially reuse these offers and I can essentially reuse these product specs. Right, so that is the functional view of it and how you actually realize it to the customer. Now, when it comes to the ground zero of it, right? So where actually you are going to activate this particular service is the technical view of it, or it is called as the resource facing services. Okay, and then the actual resource specification, how it is mapped. So if you look at this example, right, your dispatch is actually a logistic service. Your activation should be a number activation service. There should be a voice and a data activation service. So this is a service which is built on top of the actual resource which is there. So there has to be a logistics provider. It can be a third-party provider as well, or it can be the company itself who can deliver this SIM. And then there is a number management system where you get the number from, has to be mapped in there. The number has, so if I get a phone number, right, so that phone number has to be mapped in the common inventory where it is blocked against my name. So that activation has to happen from this ground zero. And the servers need to be enabled for the voice and the data services, right? So your gateways need to be enabled at the local, at the actual resource level, right? So this is how basically you map your entire product modeling to your actual product that you are selling. Understood? So in case of say other products which are there, so for example, if we talk about the courier services that we were talking about, right? So it could be similar to what you have here. So instead of the nano SIM that you're selling, you may be selling per kg or a volumetric kind of an offer to the customer, and at the ground level, it is basically the logistics provider and the transportation that has to be taken care of. So there will be a different set of hierarchy built for it, but it will be on the similar lines. Now, in telco, what happens basically is that we need to be very careful of this layer while we are trying to deal with the upper commercial layer. The reason being your actual activations, and there are like a lot of provisioning systems which are there at the downstream. Some of these provisioning systems directly belong to the company. Some of these are the actual service provider, and some of these may also belong to the third-party service provider. So for example, if along with this, this is a B2C scenario where we are kind of talking about a very basic plan. But if we talk about a complex product structure, I may be reselling some of the products from a third-party vendor. So for example, if I have an AWS plan, or if I have a GCP services to be enabled along with my internet product or my WAN product, right? So then in that case, this layer is very important where we have to deal with those third-party systems for activation. So when I say all of this, so apart from selling, ordering, and billing of the products, provisioning is the fourth pillar, which is very important in telco. And that is kind of realized using this resource-facing specs, right? Understood? So this you should register in your brains and think through while you try to model a product. So I think I can give you a homework if you go back and just try to think of a product that you're using, maybe a phone selling, or maybe your internet or a fiber service that you may be using at your home. Try to build this view as to how it can be built or modeled in the system. You can definitely share it with us on the groups, right? So that's the product modeling at ground zero. Now, if you look at the actual example, right? So these are the snippets I picked up from the website. So it's essentially an Airtel plan. So if you see, these are the different plans which are available. These are offers basically which are available, and maybe using the same set of product specifications at the bottom. So scalability, for being scalable, a product model to be scalable, it has to be reusable, and it has to be kind of modularized, so that you can pick and choose and build your packages on top of it, right? So if you look at it, basically it consists of data, calls, validity, SMS, and then these are like the cross-bundled items on the OTT services, right? So this is a very fair example of kind of build it. Now let's look at it, that how do we map it in Vlocity? I'm so used to using the term Vlocity, but I should say communications cloud. So if we see here, right, so you see the plan here, and you remember the plan that we discussed in the previous slides, right? So this is the product designer actually, which is available in the industry CPQ. And you can clearly see the kind of hierarchy which is built there. Now, these are all the offers that are made and that have been configured in the system. But below these offers, there will be a lot of things that you have to do. So there are like a lot of foundational activities that you have to build in. You have to have a product spec. Below the product spec, you would have the set of attributes that you need to have. So here in case, say my validity, or say if I say in case of data, my download, my bandwidth or my download data amount is my configurable item. So that is essentially an attribute which is there. In case of the handphone, the RAM would be there, the color of the phone would be there, and the screen size. So those things are basically attributes only, and those are kind of configurable items. In case of your internet product, it can be again your download speed, your port speed, your overall number of ports that you are looking for, the kind of router that you're looking for. So these have to be configured either as a product or an attribute. You need to define all of that in the product model, right? So if we try to map it to our previous example that we were seeing here, right? So this example, let's go and have a look at this, how it is mapped. So we have these offers here. So in case of, instead of mobile services, you can have a calling plan and a data also as an offer there. This is exactly the commercial offer that we are building. Okay, this is what you see there. And then corresponding product specs could be, and this will be the next level of hierarchy. Okay, you have to actually go in deep dive. I can't show that. I couldn't have shown that here, but we'll see a quick demo after this as to how you actually do the entire configuration and APC. Okay, so the underlying product specs would be the same voice plan, data, and the number, and these are kind of corresponding to each and every offer. So basically for every offer, you have to have a product spec, and below the product spec, you can have the remaining things configured, even your attributes. So you need to understand whether you need to do your attribute configuration at the offer level or at the product spec level, right? Based on the kind of pricing that you're going to run. So those are the aspects that you need to understand. So that is why for a product modeler, it is very important to understand what is the holistic business requirement. How are you going to price it? Accordingly only, that is the only way that you can make a good product model, which is kind of scalable and reusable. Understood? Right, so let's jump on to the demo and then we'll take the questions. I'll just play this. So watch carefully. This is a different example that we are using. However, the configurations almost remain the same. So you see these are like kind of available products which are available. However, you can still configure all of them. I mean, you have to do like foundational activities, attributes, pick list configurations, the base product setup, and then you can set up the overall product. So here we are trying to set the object type for a GCP product and define the status of it. It has to be orderable and active, and then only you will be able to see it in the cart. Right? And you can also define the hierarchy of that particular product, attach the attributes to it. So these configurations, I mean, I would say are pretty simple if you have a very firm product model done, or if you have all the definitions carefully crafted, right? So you have to be very careful when you are deriving the requirements, trying to understand everything and defining the product model, right? So now we are going to see the product structure. We can build a hierarchy out of it, right? So I'm adding a child product out there. So maybe compute engine, static IP, those kind of things can be added. You set the cardinality of the product as to how much minimum, maximum, and the default quantities you can deliver. And then you set the price list and the pricing for it. So how much you're going to sell it for and what is your price list basically, right? So those are the things you need to basically configure for your product to be available on the cart and be sellable. You're selecting the price plan there. You can attach the context rules. So based on the context rules, your products can be, say, auto added or kind of recommended for the other products. Then you have to run some maintenance jobs to basically refresh the product hierarchy so that the exact hierarchy is visible in the cart. And you refresh the cache, platform cache, and then you'll be able to see it in the cart. Now, I think the next step would be basically adding it to the cart and being able to see it. So this is the original product console, which was given by industry CPQ earlier. And now we have a new product designer where you can see the hierarchy as well, which I just showed on the screen. So we are going on a test code, and on the code, we'll configure this code and we try to add the product to the cart, right? So we'll search for Google Grammar. You have the cart there, and then you can see the product there, and then you can configure those attributes. Right, and then you see the product. So that's basically all about the product configurations.